Breaking news from Bloomberg, as all the rumors seem to be true. Stroll Sr. is selling 25% from Aston Martin. Has this something to do with recent news that Adrian Newey will be leaving Red Bull, or is something totally different? Aston Martin's rough start to the season is the only downside for the team so far. However, rumors in the paddock suggest big changes are on the horizon that could shake up the F1 world. There's talk of familiar faces joining the Silverstone-based team, potentially putting them in the title race for years to come. It all began a year ago when Aston Martin partnered with Aramco, Saudi Arabia's oil and gas giant, the second largest company globally by revenue. While there were talks of a complete takeover, they settled on a partnership, with Aramco becoming Aston Martin's title sponsor. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund increased its stake in the British luxury car maker to 20.5%. In November, Lawrence Stroll made a significant move by selling part of the Aston Martin Formula One team to US-based private equity firm Arctos Partners. This sparked rumors that Stroll might be stepping back from managing the team gradually. Aramco has been a committed global partner in Formula One since 2020. During the pandemic, there were talks of Aramco potentially taking control of F1 from Liberty Media, but that didn't happen. Instead, the value of the sport tripled, benefiting both Liberty Media and the F1 teams. Aramco's role as Aston Martin's main sponsor shows a strong and lasting commitment. This partnership extends to areas like media presence and technology, which are crucial as F1 moves towards using 100% sustainable fuels by 2026. Since Lawrence Stroll rescued the then Force India team from administration in 2018, there's been an impressive transformation at the Silverstone-based outfit. Now there's talk of Stroll selling a minority stake in the Aston Martin F1 team. This comes after he rebranded the team as Aston Martin, a car company he owns separately, in 2021. Since then, they've become a strong force on the grid, securing 5th place in the Constructors' Championship in 2023. In May last year, Aston Martin announced a technical partnership with Honda, the engine supplier for Red Bull, for the major regulation changes coming in 2026. Recent news of Fernando Alonso committing to Aston Martin with a new contract until at least 2026 adds to the team's momentum as they aim for championship success. It's been revealed that Mr. Stroll is eager to take advantage of the team's success and the rising popularity of Formula One. According to sources familiar with the situation, the Canadian billionaire is open to selling up to 25% of the racing business. Reportedly, Stroll is aiming to surpass the £1 billion, $1.3 billion valuation from the deal with US private equity firm Arctos Partners last November. A spokesperson commented that the team has been approached by interested parties, especially after the investment from Arctos Partners. The spokesperson also mentioned that any discussions are private and there's no news to share yet. Speculation about Mr. Stroll selling a share in the team arises as Aston Martin is rumored to be pursuing Adrian Newey, who is set to leave Red Bull. Last month, reports surfaced that Mr. Stroll made a tempting contract offer to Newey during the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. F1 commentator Peter Windsor, who has a history with Newey from their time at Williams, stated that Newey has turned down the offer. He mentioned that everyone wants Adrian Newey. Ferrari, Mercedes and Aston Martin all desire him. Apparently, Aston Martin and their title sponsors Aramco offered Newey a lot of money, but he declined. Money isn't his main motivation. He's more interested in enjoying racing and fitting it into his life plans. Even if they offered him £1 billion, it wouldn't sway him much. He's already rejected their offer, so it's doubtful he'll join Aston Martin. However, it's still a possibility. In Jeddah, Saudi Arabia's interest in Formula One is growing, with the state directly involved and Aramco linked to promoting the country's global image through big acquisitions like the one with Aston Martin. It's clear they're serious about their involvement in the sport. This situation mirrors what happened last December when Mumtalakat, Bahrain's investment fund, took full ownership of McLaren Group, including the McLaren F1 team. It seems like there might be a competition between Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, with the Saudis possibly aiming to acquire Aston Martin. If Aston Martin were to make such a move, it would really shake up the sport, especially considering the recent drama with Red Bull. If Verstappen were to leave Red Bull, Aston Martin could become a serious contender. We've been discussing Mercedes a lot, and they're struggling in this ground effect era. Plus, with Hamilton leaving, things aren't looking great for them. On the other hand, Aston Martin has shown competitiveness this season, especially in qualifying, where they're the third fastest on average. While their race performance hasn't been as strong, they're planning to introduce more upgrades as the season goes on. Despite Ferrari's resurgence, Aston Martin is still in the mix, especially in qualifying, where they've outperformed Mercedes. Another reason for Aston Martin's optimism is their partnership with Honda starting in 2026. This could be a big deal, especially since Honda has been successful with Red Bull, and Verstappen knows their engines well. Red Bull, on the other hand, will be working with Ford in 2026, which might not inspire as much confidence as Mercedes, Ferrari, or Honda. With a works deal in place, Aston Martin won't have to worry about compatibility issues with Mercedes components anymore, like rear suspensions or gearboxes. The situation gets more interesting if there's enough money involved. Recent talks, especially after the Jeddah Grand Prix, focus on Lawrence Stroll considering selling a minority stake in the team, as we mentioned earlier. This move hints that Stroll might be thinking about selling the team altogether. It could make sense, given his success in building the team's reputation. While Stroll wants a world championship for his team and his son, as he mentioned in the latest season of Drive to Survive, he sees himself primarily as a father and then an F1 team owner. But achieving this goal might need more money. With big funding possibly on the way, like from Aramco, the temptation of extra investment would be hard to resist. Aramco has deep pockets, and with the huge resources of the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, they offer substantial financial support. Saudi Arabia's growing interest in making big investments is clear in their partnership with Aston Martin as the title sponsor and their significant presence in events like the recent one in Jeddah. The Saudis are deeply involved in many areas, including Formula One. They're building a huge circuit in Qiddiya and might even host races there in the future, along with Jeddah. Their financial resources seem endless. Now, if Verstappen and Newey leave Red Bull, Aston Martin could become very attractive financially. If Aramco buys Aston Martin, the Saudis would likely offer a lot of money to Verstappen and Newey. We might see them working for Aston Martin, not far from Milton Keynes. Aramco didn't comment on this when asked, but it would be interesting to see how Verstappen and Newey do in a team like that. This would be a big change from a few months ago. It's important to note that the budget cap on teams doesn't include spending on top executives and drivers. They could potentially earn hundreds of millions, while other employees get much less, usually tens of thousands to low hundreds of thousands. All outcomes are possible, so we shouldn't forget about Aston Martin as a potential destination for Verstappen and Newey. But it all hinges on who comes out on top in Red Bull's internal conflicts. The 2026 F1 season is set to be more exciting for everyone with big rule changes. With Honda teaming up with Aston Martin, Verstappen can see this as a positive move. If Aramco takes over, Aston Martin and Honda could become top contenders for success in 2026. Just like in football, where Saudi involvement can change things, the same could happen in F1. From an ethical standpoint, this would be concerning for the sport. It sends a message that everything can be bought with money, regardless of ethical considerations. There's a big difference between discussing human rights issues during a single race event and allowing a country to have influence within the sport. The Saudi royal family, known for their poor treatment of the LGBTQ community, would then be involved in a sport that values equality. While there are other races held in countries with similar human rights issues, it's a complex topic worth discussing separately. Whether Lawrence Stroll will sell the team remains uncertain, but with substantial oil money involved in almost every sport, we might see an Aramco Formula One team soon. Even if it stays as Aston Martin, having such wealthy ownership could attract top talent, including the best drivers and engineers.